So it's the weekend and we're going to go in and update my stock tracker spreadsheet with those new distributions we are going to be earning. We'll go through that, update that, find out what my new real price per share is. But before we do that, we're going to take a look at SMCY as it did drop pretty hard on Friday because SMCI, which is the underlying, had some very bad news. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So, as I stated, we're going to update my spreadsheet with the distributions from those high yield ETFs that I do own. But before we get into that, I do want to talk a little bit about SMCY. Now, as I already stated, it took a fall. So some kind of news came out and pushed that stock down as it moved down quickly. So let's just go ahead and let's take a look at the stock chart just to see what happened. And here we are on SMCY, and this is the YMAX ETF. And you can see we've been trading sideways for quite some time right here, right? Anything from a roughly about 677 to roughly about 777, okay? So we've just been trading up and down within this range. Then that Thursday close was $7.40, but that Friday open, it dropped. It opened at $5.51 before closing at $5.02. Wow, that is one hard fall. Now that's SMCY. Let's take a look at the underlying, which is SMCI. And there you go. This is SMCI. Looks very similar because SMCI is the underlying. So what it does, SMCY will pretty much mimic it. It's been trading sideways. And then there's the drop. Now, as you can see on Thursday, it closed at $30.79, but Friday it opened at $22.52 before closing at $20.53. Ouch. That's a $10.26 drop that's showing right there, or a 33% drop. That hurts, right? And it just destroyed anyone who had bought a call, because if that price was around about 30 bucks, if you were buying a call at 32 or say 33, after this drop right here, that call is pretty much worthless, right? And you needed that price to move up to make money if you bought the call. So it just completely destroyed anyone who had purchased a call. But on the other hand, if you bought a put, my goodness, you just racked up. You probably got 4 figures on that percentage move, as that is a crazy move. Because like I said, we closed at $30.79, and then we closed on Friday at that $20.53. That is one heck of a move. So what in the world could have caused a fall like that? Had to be some bad news, right? So if you do a little research, you'll see a lot of articles on it. Pick one, you can read it. But the one that I found was on Seeking Alpha. And here's the one on SMCI that I did find on Seeking Alpha. And as you can see right here, SMCI shares closed at $20.53 on Friday. And we just saw that on the chart. And that's down 33%. That's correct. After overnight news, the individuals linked to the company, including the co-founder, were charged with assisting in the smuggling of that at least $2.5 billion worth in AI technology to China. So there it is, right there. That is a big piece of news that will definitely cause something to drop, right? So this was nothing that anyone could have even known about. And that's why I think a lot of people just got hammered on this one. And of course, it just mentions the options chain. And as we just spoke about that, if you were in the options on that one, especially if you were buying options, you either made out very well or you lost just about the entire value of that option. So of course, with this kind of pullback, that did affect our SMCY, because as we were looking here on the chart, If it had closed on Thursday at $7.40 and now we're sitting at $5, yeah, I can tell you right now that SMCY for me is going to be red, right? Because that is one heck of a drop. But the question is, do you buy this drop or not? Because the news itself really caused it to drop, and it dropped hard. But the question you do have to ask yourself is, do people still have faith in the company or not? Because if they do not, they're not going to be buying this drop, right? They are going to get out, which is, of course, going to cause the stock to drop even more. So that is a decision that you have to try to figure out which is best for you. But when we finish entering in the distributions on my high yield stock tracker sheet, we'll take a look and see if a $5 purchase price or roundabouts would be a very good purchase for me to help lower that real price per share. So speaking of that real price per share, let's go ahead and jump right into my high yield stock tracker sheet, get those distributions entered in, and find out how much I am down on some of these, even just due to the pullback in the market. Because even on SPY, you can see it has been coming down for about the last month, right? We have been pulling back. So that does affect other stocks. And of course, the high yield ETFs are going to get hit as well. So after covering all that, let's go ahead and jump right into my high yield stock tracker sheet and let's get the plugging away. So here we're looking at my high yield stock tracker sheet. And with this sheet, I'm able to enter in each position that I do own and find out if I'm currently positive or negative on that position. Basically, am I making money or losing money on the position? And with the market pullback, it's good to know and to understand where I currently sit for each of these high yield ETFs. Now, due to the market pullback, I do have a few of them currently red. Okay, and if this number here is red, as you can see for CONY, then that means that if I were to sell out of that position, I would lose money. But if it's green, then if I were to sell out of that position, I would make money. And you would see right through here on this highlighted line, this is how much I would stand to lose, say on CONY, and this is how much I would stand to win or gain if I were to sell out of PLTY, and so forth, right? We can go through each one of these and you can see how much I would be up or down on. And if you have this sheet and you're using it to track your ETFs, you also would know exactly how much you would be up or down, and this does take into account your distributions because you're earning those distributions, and that should play a part of whether or not you're up or down on a certain position. So if you would like to get a copy of this spreadsheet, come on over, join my Discord. The link will be in the pinned comments and in the descriptions below. Now, because of the market pullback, I am currently sitting at about a gain of $9,571 if I were to sell out of all of my positions. And that's all of these high yield ETFs that I currently own. And I have a total of about 14. But out of these 14, I am still down on CONY, ULTY, and SMCY. We just talked about that and explained why I'm down on that one, as I have a real price per share of about $7.30. But because of that news that did come out, that dropped the price of SMCY down to $5.02, which then turned this one red. I'm also down on WDTE, and because of the market pullback, DIVO is now red. Now, it's not red by much because the current price of DIVO is $44.34 and my real price per share is $44.93. So I'm not down by much on DIVO, but because of that overall market pullback, as we've looked at on SPY, it is affecting a lot of different stocks and ETFs. So let's just go ahead and let's enter in the distributions, and we'll start right off with CONY. And of course, if you're using my spreadsheet to get to those individual sheets, It's quick and easy from the summary page, and this is the summary page. You can just hover right over that ticker. The little hyperlink pops up right here. You click it, and there you go. Takes you straight to that sheet where you're tracking your own high yield ETF, no matter which one it is. You don't have to have the same ones I have. You can have different ones, and it will take you to the one that you're tracking. So for CONY, we earned 61 cents this week. A very nice little pop-up from the 59 that we earned last week. So that is a positive move on that distribution. We just need a little help for their share price, right? And with that, we need Bitcoin to continue moving up. So for CONY, I have a total of 175 shares. So my real price per share of $40.85 now becomes $40.24. And yes, I am still down on CONY because the current price is $29.86. And that means that if I were to sell all my shares at that current price of CONY, I would take a loss of $1,815. Now, no one wants to take a loss, but because Bitcoin has been coming down, so I'm still showing CONY as down. Now, Bitcoin has been rallying a little bit here and there, but then coming right back down. We just need it to move on up, get a little bit more push on that to get it to go on up so that Coinbase can hopefully start recovering. Because if Coinbase, ticker COIN, moves up, then so will CONY. Next, we have PLTY. And for PLTY, this one here is paid off. Now, what that means is that I have no capital invested into PLTY. I've got it all repaid back to me, as you can see right here. My capital invested was about $2,200, and I've earned a little over $2,300 in distributions. So therefore, I cannot lose on PLTY. I have no capital invested, and as long as I do not exceed buying shares, which takes it above that paid off status, then I cannot lose on PLTY. All of those distributions coming in are free and clear, and it's just a very nice place to be. So for PLTY, we earned 80 cents this week, and I have a total of 37 shares. So my real price per share of minus $2.26 will now be minus $3.06. And like I said, it's because my capital is not increasing, but those distributions are. And as those increase above how much I actually had invested, that is just free and clear money into my pocket. For NVDY, we earned 13 cents. I have 71 shares. So my real price per share of $11.20 now becomes $11.06. Therefore, if I were to sell all my shares of NVDY at the current price, I would make $134. For ULTY, we earned 40 cents. I have a total of 56 shares, and therefore my real price per share of $34.30 now becomes $33.89. Bringing it on down, but the fact that it is above that current price of $31.22 means if I were to sell all my shares at that current price, I would take a loss of $149. For MSTY, this one here is another one I have paid off. And we earned 43 cents this week. And that's up from the 38 from last week. And I have a total of 95 shares. And therefore, my real price per share of minus $8.76 now becomes minus $9.20. Very, very nice. Now, for the ones that I do have paid off, you'll see this number right here. And this number tells you how much you actually have that you could spend and still stay in the paid off status, and the number of shares that would equate to utilizing that current price of $23.04. So of course, if that price does change, so would the number of shares that you could purchase and still stay under that $873 in my case. But as long as I stay under any purchases under this amount, then I would stay in paid off status. And that is definitely my goal for all of these high yield ETFs. Now we're on to SMCY, and SMCY is the one that we were talking about that did have the drop due to SMCI and that bad news that did come out. And we did earn about 10 cents on that distribution, and I have 300 shares. That's going to change my real price per share of $7.30 down to $7.19. Now, of course, this one is still red because that current price is $5.02. And if my real price per share is above it, that means I would take a loss if I were to sell all my shares at that current price. And in this case, I would take a loss of about $650. But the question is do I go ahead and look to purchase some shares because it is down? And it's down due to the news, and it all depends on how the market reacts going forward due to that news. If the market feels this is something they can come back from, then this drop could be very short-lived. But if the market feels that that charge of potentially smuggling AI technology is just too bad of an image for the company, then they will possibly punish it even more and push that price even further down. So that is the question. Do you buy at this price, or do you wait for the dust to settle? And in my case, what I might do is I might buy some shares because it's down so much, and then wait for the dust to settle and see how the market is treating SMCI at that point, and possibly buy more shares at that time. So I just might end up buying some shares around this $5 range, because if I scroll up here, you can see here are my buying ranges of SMCY, and at no point do I have any that low. So a $5 purchase would be a nice little buy because that could help lower this real price per share. And when we go back to the summary page, we'll punch that in and see what that potential real price per share could be moved to, depending on how many shares I did purchase. But until then, let's move forward onto AMDY. And for AMDY, we earned 32 cents. I have 164 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $28.04 now becomes $27.72. With the current price of $30.99, if I were to sell all my shares at that price, I would gain $536. For YMAX, we earned 8 cents. I have 758 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $6.90 becomes $6.82. And if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $8.05, I would make $935. For WDTE, we earned 42 cents. I have 116 shares. My real price per share of $43.49 now becomes $43.06. Now, due to the price of WDTE being $28.68 means that I am going to take a loss if I did sell my shares of WDTE. And I would take a loss of $1,668 if I did make that move. But I'm going to hold off as the market is down, Bitcoin is down, and I need both of them to move on up. QDTE, we earned 12 cents. I have 155 shares, and therefore my real price per share of $21.62 now becomes $21.50. So if I were to sell all my shares at that current price of $27.99, I would make $1,006. IWMY, we earned 10 cents. I have 551 shares. My real price per share of $14.97 now becomes $14.86. And if I were to sell all my shares at the current price of $17.81, I would make $1,624. As you can see, even on the ones that I was down on versus the ones that I'm up on, in the end, I'm still in the positive overall. QQQY, we earned 12 cents. I have a total of 551 shares. Therefore, my real price per share of $19.34 now becomes $19.21. And if I were to sell my shares at the current price of $20.96, I would make $963. For WDTE, we earned 17 cents. I have 540 shares. with a real price per share of $25.26. That would then change to $25.09. So if I were to sell all my shares at that $28.56 price for WDTE, I would make $1,872. For JEPQ, this is a monthly payer, so I do not have a distribution to enter in. So therefore, my real price per share of $9.68 still stands, with the current price of $55.76 means if I were to sell all my shares at that current price, I would make $2,534. Last but not least is DIVO. And for DIVO, I have a current real price per share of $44.93, and it too is a monthly payer. So therefore, I do not have a distribution to enter in on this one. Because it is seeing a pullback in the overall market, I could stand to buy some shares at this $44.34 on DIVO because it would be below my real price per share. Anytime I buy below my real price per share, I only help to lower it even more, so that when that current price of DIVO does move back up, it's got less room to go before crossing back over my real price per share and then turning this negative $7.09 loss to a positive number. But of course, if the market continues to pull back, we're going to continue to see a lot of these stock prices coming on down. But in the case of DIVO, I can see this one moving back up. So a purchase, which will lower that real price per share, could be pretty beneficial. But we'll take a look at that one as well whenever we go to the summary page. And speaking of the summary page, since that was my last individual high yield ETF stock, we can go right back to that summary page by clicking this little box right here. You can see a pop-up will come up, and that is the hyperlink to go right back to that summary. We click it and we're right back to the summary page. As you can see, those distributions did bring our gains up to $10,219. Now, if we can get a turnaround in the market, then we can hopefully see this increasing. Now, for the purchases that we were talking about for SMCY, since it is around about a $5 market price, if I did buy shares, what could it actually move this real price per share down to? It's currently at $7.19. But if I did buy shares, what would it lower it down to? Well, that is what this little calculator is right here. So we can just simply do the drop down. You select which one that you have. And all of these will change depending on which ETFs that you are tracking. So for me, I'm going to look at SMCY. I select it. I then enter in the buy price. We're just going to enter in that market price, even though it has moved around and it's not going to be 502 come Monday, but we're just going to use that price for this example. So we'll enter in $5.02 and then how many shares do we want to purchase? So this is where you would decide on how much money you would want to put into it. So I have to decide how much do I want to buy into SMCY. Now, since I do not know if this one's going to continue moving down, if the market's going to continue to punish SMCI because of that AI smuggle news report, then I may not want to buy too much of it. But if it's a quick turnaround, I'm probably going to wish I would have bought some of SMCY. Now, the one thing to keep in mind is if SMCI does jump back up, SMCY itself cannot move up that fast. We will need SMCI to move up slowly so that SMCY price can capture all of that move up. Now, of course, we have no control over that, but I just wanted to let you know that if SMCI did pop from this $20.35 back up to $30, then SMCY here is not going to do that same pop up because it cannot move up that fast. It may move from $5 to maybe $6 right here or something like that, just shooting numbers out there, but it's definitely not going to move from 5 all the way back up to $7.50 here, because it is selling calls against the underlying, and that does have a cap gain on it. And because of that, we are capped on those gains. And that's why we need SMCI here to move up, but we need it to stair step up. And if it can stair step up, then I think SMCY can capture a lot of those moves up and hopefully get it back up to close to where it was at before. So with all that said, if I bought 50 shares of SMCY, that would be $251. That would be a nice real price per share change of about 4.3%. So therefore, my SMCY of $7.19 here would change to $6.88. And of course, it does adjust, depends on how many shares that you're going to buy and at what buy price. Both of them will affect that real price per share. Because if I can get them at a lower price of say $4.89, then my real price per share is going to be $6.86. And if I purchased more shares of say 100 shares at $4.89, it's going to be $6.61. So you can see each one of these does affect that real price per share. And it is taking into account what your real price per share is showing on this sheet, and then calculates it so that if you did purchase so many shares at a certain price, what would that new real price per share be? But for me, we're going to keep it at that 502, and I'm thinking about 50 shares. That'll be about $250, and it's going to give me a nice 4% drop in the change of that real price per share. And I feel like that's a pretty good move. Of course, if I can't get it for 502 and it ends up being 520, then that's going to, of course, lower that percentage drop right there to about 3.95 at those same 50 shares. And it's ended up going to cost me $260, and that real price per share will change now to $6.91. But I will look to try to get about 50 shares, as long as it's down still around close to $5. And the other one I wanted to look at was Divo. So let's just go ahead and let's clear this off, and let's reselect Divo here. And that buy price, we're just going to put it at the market price, which is $44.34. So we'll enter $44.34 right here. And how many shares? I'm thinking maybe about 10 shares of Divo. That would be about $443. That would take my real price per share down to $44.66. And let's see what it was before. And we can look at that, and it's $44.93. So from $44.93 to $44.66. And that current price we saw was $44.34. So therefore, if Divo moves back up, and if I make this purchase and have my real price per share of $44.66, and Divo moves back up and it gets above $44.66, even at $44.67, I am now in the green, right? Versus if I do not purchase them and that price goes to $44.67 and my real price per share is still $44.93, it's still going to show red, okay? So I just wanted to try to help you to understand, just by purchasing those shares, it's going to lower my real price per share so that whenever that market price does move up, it doesn't have to go up as high before making my position green. Because right now, I need that price to go above $44.93 to make this position green. But if I did purchase those shares and my real price per share is $44.66 right here, then I will be green if it moves up above that $44.66. So I try to make my purchases in a way that they will help me the most. Because if you buy shares above your real price per share, then it's going to raise that real price per share. And if the stock or ETF itself drops, it's got less to drop before it all of a sudden turns your position red. I always want to move my real price per share down. So when the price of that ETF drops below my real price per share, it could potentially be a good time to buy to help lower my real price per share. But of course, none of this is financial advice. You have to make your own decisions and do your own homework before you buy or even sell any of these high yield ETFs or any stocks or ETFs, to be honest. So again, if you would like to get a copy of this spreadsheet because you own high yield ETFs and you want to try to track those to understand where you currently sit for each of their positions, then come on over, join the Discord. The link will be in the pinned comments and down in the descriptions below. And also for joining, I also have my options tracker that you will get a copy of as well, where you will be able to track your options you are selling to help track how much you're actually earning in the options that you're selling on the positions you're selecting. So I think I'm going to wrap it up right there. If you don't mind, hit that subscribe button and smash the like button, as it would be much appreciated. And it does help the channel out. But as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, legend out.